Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Katherine O'Brien, and I'm delighted that you are here tonight for my talk on the Foundation on Pillars of College Prep. Forgive me, the doorbell's going to keep ringing as people come in, and we're just going to need to ignore it. I am recording this, so if you could make sure that you are muted, that would be helpful. I will send the recording out to everyone. I hope that you were able to get the information ahead of time and maybe have conversation with your family, gather some questions. And I really hope that you're going to be able to take notes tonight. Please take note of your questions as they come up. Hopefully they will get answered later in the presentation. Because as I've done this in the past many times, questions tend to be quite personal. I've decided to not have a public question and answer period at the end of this. Instead, I will give you an opportunity to meet with me privately in order to get your particular questions answered, just to protect everyone's privacy. So there'll probably be people entering as we go along, and just ignore the little doorbell sound. That'd be great. So let us get started. Our kids are gifts from God. And as we begin, let's take a moment to pray in our Father. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, now and ever and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. As we contemplate our children's journey from home to campus, many, many questions flood our minds. This college prep process for many of us began even before our children were born, sometimes before we even met our spouses. And so we want to handle it well, and we want to prepare our kids as best we can in order to launch them into the world as healthy, well-educated, faith-filled men and women. So there's a lot on the line. The foundation, as you may have guessed, for college success, for life, for everything is God and our faith in him. He created us. He gave us our children as gifts, and he has a call for each one of us and for all of our children. So as Christians, we must build everything upon the foundation of faith and upon God. As St. John Paul II said in his letter to families, we are called to live in truth and in love. With this in mind and on this foundation, allow me to briefly introduce myself. As I said, I'm Katherine O'Brien. I am the mother of 9. I'm a 23-year Catholic homeschool veteran, a professional college planning specialist for 19 years. I'm the founder of Celtic College Consultants. I'm an author, a speaker, and a woman devoted to empowering teens and their families. I've been blessed to have an excellent education. I have a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Northwestern University. I have a master's degree in theology from Franciscan University, and I am currently a doctoral student because I can't get enough of going to school. And I'm doing a doctorate in theology at Pontifex University. I'm also a certified college planning specialist. And as I mentioned, I've been doing this work for almost 20 years now. I am the founder of Celtic College Consultants, and I have had the privilege of serving families from Australia to Germany to Brazil, from Florida to California, and many, many places in between. In addition to being well-prepared students with goals and well-selected colleges, my clients have averaged nearly $250,000 each in scholarships, which is a wonderful thing. I offer my services to all families. I work from a Catholic perspective, and I believe that each of us is created in God's image, and that God has given us gifts and talents and has a plan for each of our lives. I have also been a Benedictine Oblate for 33 years. I'm attached to St. Vincent Arch Abbey outside of Pittsburgh. And for the past 2 years, I have been the creator of the Quo Vadis show. It's a radio show. It's a Catholic invitation to know and follow Jesus Christ. And I'll actually put a link in it in one of the follow-up emails to the radio show, because I find that some people like to listen to that. I have had clients accepted a wide array of colleges, public universities, art schools, Ivy League schools, as well as faithfully Catholic colleges. And I have a question for you. What's the largest Catholic college community in the United States? I asked my son this earlier today, and He said Franciscan University. I asked a client a week or two ago, and she thought it was Notre Dame. And no, actually, it's Texas A&M University. So it's not a Catholic school, but it's the largest Catholic community on a college campus. There are many, many paths to find faith on campus, and I will get into that in greater detail as we go along. Again, another quote from St. John Paul II, "The future is in your hearts and in your hands. God is entrusting to you the task, at once difficult and uplifting, of working with him in the building of the civilization of love." Please ignore that. This is our task as individuals and as parents. In my work as a college consultant, I have the privilege of collaborating with parents as we do this work, inculcating this into our children. Our goal is successful adults, well-educated. They found their vocation, maybe even a spouse or an order, and we want them to be able to put their gifts and talents to work in the service of God and their communities. And we want to build on this foundation. So let me talk to you about the 3 pillars of college success. Of course, we always stand on prayer, but what do we do practically? First, college success is what I call having well-prepared students at the right schools for them, studying the right field for them with abundant funding. It all needs to come together to call it success, because a student can be well-prepared at the wrong school. That was me. Or you have a lot of money and your student's not prepared, et cetera. So we really need all 3 aspects of this coming together in order for things to work well. So the first pillar is student preparation. And our goals here are to instill good character in our young people, that they have solid confidence in their skills and abilities in themselves, and they become clear communicators. And that is in every way, whether it's tweeting, writing academic theses, speaking, meeting people in the elevator, just how they present themselves. We want them to be able to communicate clearly and effectively. So how do we do that? Well, through selecting challenging, relevant courses. And I say relevant because depending on what direction they're going, you're going to alter their high school curriculum a little bit. Appropriate extracurricular activities, developing leadership in them, fostering maturity, guiding them to set goals for their lives and for their college careers. And by guiding them as they craft powerful, effective, polished college applications that showcase themselves and their accomplishments. So it's a holistic process here. This process takes time. Those are the categories that I mentioned. Students take time to work with me, and often starting as early as 8th grade. And the earlier they begin, the more holistic our work can be. Obviously, we have more opportunities to develop and grow the student as time goes on when they start earlier. Some students start with me later on. We truly try to foster the unique wonderfulness of each student. And they're all different, as you know. I have 6 kids, they couldn't be more different. I have artists and people that work with their hands and people that have anxiety and, Eagle Scouts and misfits. And, you have 6 kids, you got a little bit of everything. So our kids, as you know, are all unique. The second pillar is savvy college selection. And rather than relying on ratings based on criteria, which have nothing to do with a given student. If you look at like US News and World Report or Forbes and those companies, you can find what the criteria are and how important is alumni giving, or how important is the opinion of colleges similar to them. Does that really tell you anything about what they're offering for your particular child? Not really. Alumni tells you about the history. And, the good old boy club of we like these other schools and pat each other on the back. That's nifty. And those criteria are completely gamed. I will tell you, there have been many, many campaigns by colleges to move up in the rankings, and they'll do things like send kids like pre-completed applications, basically, and, no fee, and just do a couple things. And most of the kids that they send those to are not going to get accepted. But then they look more selective and they go up in the ratings because that just means they're rejecting more kids. So is that a good way for us to evaluate the colleges? I don't think so. So we turn everything upside down. With the student, we identify the criteria, and then we deeply evaluate colleges to find the right course or major, the right campus fit, and then make a conscious choice of colleges to apply to. And put all the pictures up here. Oops, at once. Okay. So fit is a key factor in college selection. And it's a little bit hard for us engineering types. We want to be able to quantify things, but there's so many facets to it, and they're different for each one of our kids. It's complex, and that's why we create our own criteria. You know, for me, I didn't care about athletics. Northwestern was great. They never won a football game. You know, when I got there as a freshman, didn't matter a bit to me. We actually had a slogan when other teams would score against us. We'd stand up and say, "That's all right. That's okay. You're going to work for us someday." And we'd sit down, because we were like, it's a game and life is not sports. But for other people, sports is the lifeblood of how they make relationships and have community. So that's just one example of how different fit is going to work for different students. And it could be the vibe on campus, the learning opportunities. We have some schools that are great at hands-on and other schools are more theoretical. We have schools like UC Santa Barbara, which has a great reputation, but a lot of the intro classes have 1,100 students in them. So if that's not you, being okay to swim on your own and be able to handle all that with basically no contact with your professor, that's not a good place. Location comes into it, dorm rules and offerings comes into it, costs, of course, and a zillion other factors. So we need to determine the right fit for your team and then find the schools that have that. So basically, under the basic factors, the student needs to know what they want to study. You know, I love the kids that say, well, I want to study, you know, a particular field, and this is my favorite school. And I said, that's really cool, but they don't have that major. So what were you thinking? Oh, well, my buddy likes that school, but they don't have the major. So then we have to have a whole conversation. Is that really the major you want to study? What is it you like about it? Just because your friend's going there doesn't mean it's good, or just because mom and dad went there doesn't mean it's the right fit for you. So all those questions: what is the right environment for the student? What do they want to study? And then, of course, the budget comes into it. And we will get into that when we talk about the funding section, but breathe. The sticker price is not the actual price. It's a lot like buying a car. You can haggle in a sense. It's not the same process, but the sticker price is not what most people pay. Okay, so we'll get into that. It's a daunting thing. I recognize that the prices are just ridiculous. And Gallup and Purdue did a wonderful large study just a couple of years ago. And their question was, are particular colleges producing students who are happy in their lives and careers? And of course, if the answer had been yes, woohoo for them, right? Could have said, hey, Purdue's the greatest because. But what they found, that it wasn't the school that mattered. It was really what students did while on campus. So they found these 6 factors to be key. And they found that only 3% of the students were doing all of them. So finding a professor who really gets them excited about learning, especially in their major. Finding professors who care about you as a person. Like, this can be mission critical. Let me give myself as an example. So I went to Northwestern undergrad. I started as a chemistry major. And in my second quarter, we have 3 terms, we call them quarters. I was in honors organic chemistry, which I should not have been in, but that's what I was in. I didn't know any better. I'd always taken honors classes in high school. So anyway, so I'm in this class and I'm studying and studying and studying. And I didn't do very well in the final. And I was heartbroken. And I met with the professor and said, you know, I put hours and hours into it. We talked through the exam. And at the end of this long, detailed conversation, the professor said, it is clear to me that you have studied very hard. And I'm thinking, good, he can tell. And then he said something I'd never dreamed anybody would say. He said, but you don't have the gift of chemistry. So you're really not going to make it as a chem major. And I just looked at him dumbly. I'm like, what's the gift of chemistry? But this was a professor who cared about me as a person. And I was crestfallen. I was just barely 18 at the time. And he said, so what are you going to do now? And I said, well, I guess I'll go to my dorm room and I'll pack up and go home. Because I was clueless. I had no concept of, well, if I'm not going to be a chemistry major, there is no other option, right? He cared about me and spent the next hour helping me figure out another route. And I went into the engineering school and did an engineering program instead. Finding a mentor. For me, this was at the Newman Center. This was at the Shields Center for the Catholic community at Northwestern. Working on a project that lasts more than 1 term. It's complex, it's engaging. You have to navigate a lot of things over a long time, usually working with a team. And bridging the terms, it's expansive, and you have to, everything else shifts, and you're still dealing with this project. There's a lot that comes into that really, the kids really benefit in the real world. Getting an internship or a job in their field was the fifth one, and participating in extracurriculars. The kids that were happy were involved. These factors are not in the US News and World Report ratings, right? So these are the considerations that I inculcate into my students. And it doesn't, in a sense, matter where they go to school. In another sense, very real, it does. So we will continue to talk about it. But I wanted to bring this up because sometimes people get caught up on, oh, I need to go to XYZ school. Why? Well, everybody's heard of it. Okay. And so we really need to dig deeper. And at the same time, preparing students to really take advantage of wherever they end up on campus. So as I said, there's a lot of different facets that come into all of this. Okay. And then, of course, as faith-filled families, a lot of us think we want to send our kids to Catholic colleges. So what does that mean? From the comment I made at the beginning with my question about what's the largest Catholic college community in the US, and my cheeky answer, my truthful answer is Texas A&M, people are like, what? So we have a spectrum here. We have colleges that are faithfully Catholic all across their entire campus. And they work really, really hard at having all of the professors and all of the student life and everything in accord with the magisterial teaching of the church. There's not quite a couple dozen of those schools. Then we've got Jesuit schools, which kind of have their own brand of Catholicism. And then we have other historically Catholic schools. They were started as Catholic schools. They say they're Catholic schools. And they may or may not teach Catholicism. They may or may not require any classes in it. Sometimes it's good when they don't, because they can take a class on Buddhism and actually learn what Buddhism is, as opposed to taking a class on Catholicism and learning something that's not true. So there's a spectrum. And then we have all these other schools, right? Like Texas A&M. So I've created a college guide. This is the 6th edition, the 2023 edition. And there's about 300 colleges and universities in it. Most of them are not Catholic run, and they have strong Catholic communities on campus. Some even have Catholic dorms. They have the top 50 Newman centers in the country, which a Newman center is a Catholic parish, if you're not familiar with it. So a Catholic run college is going to have a campus ministry office. University of Illinois is not going to have a campus ministry office, but they're going to have a Newman center. So that's the Catholic parish dedicated to serving the college community. And some of them are producing vocations and like hand or fist. And you have some like you wouldn't expect, like the University of Wisconsin at Platteville is in southwestern Wisconsin, in farm country. It's a minor campus in the University of Wisconsin system. But Father John there is from a fairly new religious order. They offer the Latin Mass there 6 days a week. It's jammed. They're building a new church. They're building a dorm. They've been pumping out vocations for years now. Who knew? So this is the college guide that has all the Newman Guide recommended schools in it, but as well as all these other golden nuggets for parents. It's available on Amazon. And the 2023 edition is the 6th one, as I mentioned. It has an index by major. So if you want to you want to study biology, you can go in the front and look up biology and see what colleges offer that major. You want to go look up psychology or industrial engineering or any other field, there's an index in the beginning. And then on each college's page, there's admissions, financial aid, cost information for each school, as well as campus ministry information, including the names and contact information for the campus ministers and the chaplains. So this is available on Amazon. And in the process of printing, the guide cover got changed to a slightly less perky version of blue, but it's still 23. Okay. And then a mention about Newman centers. So here's a picture of several of them. These are the Catholic churches on campus. Sometimes they look like churches, like the one at the bottom looks like a house, because that's what it was. And they're all kinds of shapes and sizes. NewmanConnection.com. I have no affiliation with them, but they exist so that they can connect kiddos who are going to certain schools with the Newman Center staff there. So students, before they're even on campus, can start to make connections and make friends and walk into a community they already are familiar with. So that's why I share that. And I wanted to mention for our non-Catholic Christian friends, our Jewish friends, and our Muslim friends, they also have not Newman centers, obviously, but they do have religious centers on campus, and I can help them find those if that is where they're at. Because finding community is key. We want to avoid that 70% faith drop-off that's happening at college. Our kids can grow their faith on campus, absolutely, and they can lead others to faith. And one other thing I wanted to say, going back here, like there are colleges like Arizona State where you can take classes at University of Mary through Arizona State that'll count for your humanities. You know, who knew? And Christendom College has also got a program where you can take their classes, and they're doing them as clusters through the Newman centers. And so there's a lot of offerings happening at secular schools. So for location or a major offering or costs or any other reason that's a better fit for your student, get the guide, find out which of the public universities around you has a strong Catholic community and what's going on there, and reach out to them. The other thing I would say about the guide is, sorry, slow down, is as you are searching for schools, being able to reach out to the Newman Center staff. They see students from all across campus. So it's a really great resource for parents and students who explore a college, because admissions is also the marketing department. So they're going to give you their take and what their song Dog and Pony show is. And you get to talk to the campus people that you meet when you go on a tour, maybe. But the Newman Center people are going to tell you what the students that they're seeing are saying about campus. They may be talking about different professors or situations and programs, and they'll really have an opportunity for you to connect and get a whole spectrum of feedback when you are exploring. So it's very helpful for that as well. And then funding. This is the part that usually scares everybody. As we all know, the cost of college has been a runaway train for years, increasing far, far faster than anyone's income. Even affluent families are planning college funding carefully. My alma mater, Northwestern, is one of the many colleges that costs now in excess of $80,000 a year. And I thought it was bad when I was there. I remember when I was a freshman, tuition was like $6,500. And when I was a senior, it was $10,004. And that was a big jump and was kind of like panic time or whatever. But 80 grand a year now, I mean, tuition's 60 something. It's crazy. So, and I'm not that old, honest. And I also wanted to mention that if you want to look at other college admissions people or college consultants, most of them either focus on helping students apply or on the financial end of things. So there are very few of us who do both sides of it. So I put my engineering and my theology together to work on helping students and crunching numbers. Just so you know, shopping around. Okay. Everybody likes to talk about scholarships, so I thought I would mention them first. Okay. Most scholarship dollars come from the colleges and universities themselves, which points us right back to that second pillar, right? College selection is super critical for this aspect as well, because we have a whole spectrum. We have colleges that offer zero merit money, and we have colleges that offer every student merit money. So every student gets a scholarship, every student gets a tuition discount, every student gets whatever they want to call it, but their sticker price that they print is not what they charge anybody, because they're giving everybody 10,000 off or whatever they're doing. And then there's other schools that give zero money for merit aid. And typically those are the more selective schools. And then you have the flip side of need-based aid is very abundant at those schools. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I also wanted to mention private scholarships, which are scholarships not coming from the colleges. They impact your need-based aid eligibility dollar for dollar. So we need to look at your need-based aid situation first before we get into scholarships that are not coming from the schools. So every family is a little bit different, and depending on how many kids you have in school and all kinds of things like that. So I wanted to mention that so that you have a little bit more information. Another thing, because sometimes people feel a little bit awkward about getting scholarship money, but 58% of public college students get merit money. 89% of private college students get merit aid. The typical private college discount these days is 54%. It's a historic high. And that's probably, as our student population decreases, that's going to go up somewhat. So there's a lot of interesting things happening, and it all changes every year. So it makes things interesting in this field. Okay. Most of us have heard of the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid. This is the gateway to need-based aid at nearly every college in the United States, as well as some internationally. Some colleges also use it for their own money. Some of them use it for their scholarships. So need to read the fine print and find out what the situation is. And I help families not only file this form, but also prepare their situations in order to maximize their need-based aid when possible, or to not file it, which signals that they are full pay. Like it or not, most schools in admissions consider your ability to pay as an admissions factor, which makes sense when we think about colleges as a business. They have to get enough students in to fill the cohort, but they also need to get enough dollars in to pay the bills. And so there's always a balance between who's paying full pay and who's getting a lot of scholarship to make sure that it evens out. So this all comes into play when we're putting this whole thing together. All right, and then I wanted to give you an example. These numbers are a year or two old, but the example stands quite well. So as I said, I went to Northwestern. So our rival school is University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Urbana-Champaign, oh my goodness. U of I is the flagship school of the University of Illinois system. So cost of attendance for in-state, $29. For a family with an expected family, an EFC. So let me decode some language here. I promised I would do that. COA is cost of attendance. That is the total cost to go to a college for 1 year. That is an official number, and your mileage is going to vary, right? Because if I live in Champaign-Urbana, it's going to cost me less to get to school than if I live upstate in Chicago. Okay. So there is an official number, and it may change by college. The engineering school with the extra fees and the art school with extra materials, they might have a different number than your humanities college, your College of Arts and Sciences. But it will be a fixed number for everyone in that major or in that college, depending on how they've got it defined. So that's what COA is. EFC is the expected family contribution. This is the number that when you do the FAFSA, gets spit out at the end. You get an EFC, says, according to the federal formula, your family is expected to be able to pay this amount. Everyone sighs when they see that number because it is bigger than they expect, but it is what the number is. And Congress just changed the rules. Hopefully they'll change them some more, but that's whole formula is going to change. In any event, let me continue walking down this. So we have our cost of attendance. We have our family contribution that is going to be the minimum you're going to pay. So you're short $24,568 in our example here. So the percent need met, another term to explain. So there's an average number that if you know where to look, you can find of the percent of a family's need that gets met. And U of I for a public school is phenomenal at meeting 2/3 of need. So here's a little tip. Most schools do not meet all of need. Most schools advertise when they do meet all of need because it's not that many schools that do. Okay, so you're going to get gapped. So we'll explain all of this. So your gift aid is 67% and self-help is 33%. So of the percent of the need that they meet, they break it up. So 2/3 of it is gift aid. Gift aid is the financial aid term for money you don't have to pay back. It can be tuition reductions, it can be scholarships, it can be grants, but it's money you don't have to pay back. Self-help is student loans and work study. Now, work study you don't have to pay back, but it's called self-help because you're earning it. You're helping yourself. Okay. When I'm crunching numbers for a family, I always consider all of it to be loans because that's worst case. Okay, so the out-of-pocket here is $13,353. So that's the gap. There's $8,000 that's not being met, plus the $5,000 EFC. Okay, so that's the cost of attendance minus the financial aid. The true cost is when we add back in the loans. So you have $18,684. Okay, so then we'll look at Northwestern. This is a couple years old, as I mentioned, because NU is now 80K, but it was 63 when I did this. So it's been going up really fast. Okay, same family, EFC is 5,000. So they need 58,000. A lot of families stop right there saying, it's so far above what we can afford. We're not going to do that. And I actually had a friend just last night, we were chatting, and just for fun, he put Harvard, his numbers through Harvard. And he lives in the Midwest. He's a youth minister and has a little side business. So they do not make that much money. I'm guessing 45, 50 maybe. And he put in for Harvard, which is another one of these $80,000 plus schools. and he put in all his son's information, and their out of pocket was going to be $3,500 because they are a school like Northwestern. They meet 100% of need, most of it with gift aid. So your out of pocket here is $5,000. And then a lot of these schools have changed their policy, so they're not even offering any loans. So there's all kinds of different things going on. But I just wanted to point this out because the difference here, your true cost at the really expensive school is less than your true cost at U of I, and your out of pocket is a lot less than. And that continues to be the case until your EFC is higher than the cost of attendance at University of Illinois. So what you end up paying and the sticker price are typically very, very different numbers. And it's going to differ from you and your neighbor, and maybe this child and that child, because now you've got two in college, and it's complicated. So just don't get freaked out by the sticker price is basically what I'm trying to say. And hopefully now you know some of the lingo. Okay. I need a sip of water after all that. Okay. Hopefully I didn't scare too many people away with numbers. There are a few more because we are talking money. There are a lot of strategies that can come into play that can help you graduate early. And I always bring these in consideration. Some students that works great for, some it does not. But it can save a lot of money to graduate a semester early. Why? You're saving on college costs. And these are average 2013-14 costs and 2015 income, because getting the data, it's always years behind. So average cost, but then you're also working. Okay, so you are able to make that money, which you couldn't make when you were at school. If you finish a year early, it's 83, almost 84. Okay. And these are average numbers. So this is the finishing early. The bad news is when you go late, and that's a very common thing to have happen, it goes the other direction and you're paying a lot extra for that degree. So cost of attendance is 1 year. Another factor I always look at is cost of degree. And graduation rates and other things come into that, because a lot of schools do not get most of their kids done in 4 years. So there's a lot of factors that come into all of this that I bring into play and help families consider. And part of the cost problem, and I mentioned about student debt, I thought I had a slide on it, but I'm not seeing it. It's the average is over 31,000 per student. The vast majority of student debt happens in years 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 when the rest of financial aid is run out. So if we're getting done in 4, that really helps us get done and not have to have all that extra debt. Okay, so we're going to put it all together. So in the college success plan, we've got premier student prep, savvy college selection, and abundant college funding. They all come together to create college success. So where do we go from here? I'm hoping at this point you have a much better idea than you did when we started of the many tasks that are part of the process. And you've learned kind of the goals of student prep, the ways they are achieved, the many factors that are going into selecting colleges, as well as then the basics of college funding and aid. And obviously, I mean, I'm certified in this. I've been doing this for years. I could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but you have a lot more information now than you did when we started. Okay. So we have 2 main options. We can continue to do it ourselves, or we can partner with a college consultant like myself. So let's look at both of these, what they entail, as well as the results and the difference. Then I'm going to give you a way to connect, get your questions answered. So when you do it yourself, you need to find reliable data. You're going to spend hours researching. You need to figure out what questions to ask and keep updated with the changes, because those questions are going to keep changing. And depending on your field, it's going to change. It's a complex multi-step process, and you're dealing with your teenager and you've got all those challenges going on anyway. It can be a challenge to help our kids develop independent life skills. Some families do this beautifully. Some families, parents need a nudge. I have some wonderful families that are tremendous and terrible at giving responsibility to their kids, because mom and dad are really good at doing things, and others that are really good at it and their kids. So but working all that together, there's a lot. And then there's the whole learning how to work with a coach, which could be a mentor, it could be an academic advisor, it could be a college consultant. They're certainly going to need to be able to do that on campus. So having the opportunity to practice presenting themselves and being ready for meetings and keeping their schedule and learn how to sort things out, figure out who they are. And, in the process, you're selecting classes and activities and developing the leadership and their life and college goals, figuring out the colleges, deciphering all the insider speak, which there's a lot of it, both in admissions and financial aid, applying, getting the application essays, which I never recommend parents or English teachers help with application essays, because we know our kids too well. So we fill in the gaps and don't realize it doesn't flow, that there's background information that we're filling in because we know that our student. And then English teachers, writing for English teacher in a class is very different than what you're doing in an application essay. So, and then all of the financial aid, scholarship stuff, which is fun. On the college application preparation, obviously deeply evaluating the colleges. Why is our college the best thing since sliced bread is a typical question. Not really posed that way, of course, but they want to know that you know about them, and not just about them, but about them in your field. Getting your powerful applications, getting solid letters of recommendation, which can be interesting for homeschoolers in certain situations. And then we've got transcripts to maybe prepare or gather from multiple schools, portfolios, depending on if our kiddos are artistic, on auditions, and resumes, which is not a job resume. There's a lot of pieces, and keeping it all together and organized. We'll have to do all of that on our own if we do this all on our own. Oops. And the clock is ticking. In addition to the application deadlines, which we all are aware of are going to happen junior year, right? As we're applying into senior year, things get going. There's opportunities along the way, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, that have to be prepared for, and you have to know they're coming and do step 1 to get to step 2 and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things to be aware of and to continue to build, and it varies by field. So you don't want to miss those. So results. Most of our kids, and we know this from the Department of Education, most of our kids apply to 1 to 2 colleges near to home. The average in the US for more than a decade has been taking 6 years to graduate with a bachelor's degree. 8 to 10 years is becoming increasingly common, largely because kids can't afford it. And so they're working and going part-time and taking a class here and a class there to finish. On average, kids are changing their major 3 or more times. With average costs, it costs $49,000 more to finish your degree when you change your major, because typically a lot of your credits aren't going to transfer or count towards your diploma degree, and you'll need to go for an extra year. When you transfer colleges from one college to another college, often you're adding 2 years, and now we're looking at $100,000 extra to get our degree. And kids are changing their majors 3 or more times. So this not doing the work in high school to plan and sort out different pros and cons and how well does it fit with different careers and fields and all of that, to have a clue of at least a narrow cluster of majors and fields that we want to go into, really costs in the end. And then we lose our holidays. Thanksgiving and Christmas end up insane, and everybody yelling at everybody because the applications are due. There's November 1st, December 1st, January 1st deadlines. And then there's priority program and scholarship deadlines. There's a lot to keep track of. There's a lot of fine print. And a lot of times when you're not familiar, you miss that. Aid applications, a lot of them still get submitted with errors. The Department of Education keeps changing the FAFSA form, and it's getting better. So the errors are going down, which is helpful. But sometimes people are still including things that they don't need to as assets, and then they're not eligible and they would have been. And there's a lot of things. And as I mentioned, the average debt is over $31,000. So those are the DIY results. Okay. And then the alternative, working with somebody like me in my college success program with the 3 pillars that we've talked about today. So let's take a look at that. So now you've got a professional experienced guidance for your teen and for parents. I help both. We meet at least once a month, as often as once a day, depends on what's going on and what deadlines are coming on. And because this has to fit in along with everything else. So I've had kids at time crunch and we're getting a lot of done really fast, and it's a whole spectrum. We have personalized career major program search process, college selection, research, guidance, recommendations, including net cost estimations before we apply. So we pull that list together, and here's the criteria. And I work with the student to put that together, and then they go talk to mom and dad and say, here's the schools and why these schools. And mom and dad are like, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or that's too much money, or whatever those things are. And that's an iterative process. And the students learning how to present themselves and to consider all these things, and everybody's getting their voice in this till the thing gets finalized. But you can see that, oh, for us, it's going to cost more than we've got, or, oh, this is affordable, or all those things. I use a top college selection testing planning application tracking program. And then I do financial aid and college funding strategy sessions, of course, and more. And every family is different, and it's a holistic process. I have written a campus visit guide, achievements resume creation guide. As I said, they're going to do a resume, but it's not for a job. And 100 Most Generous Colleges, I write it, as you might guess. And then results. So here's some pictures of some actual people I've actually worked with. I have never met any of them in person. So I've been working with people virtually for the entire 19 years. So I've met very few of my clients in person. But let me share some results. So Sam was able to do research for NASA and be published while he was in high school. He's now studying planetary geology at his top school, and he is an active camper. I'm working with his younger sister right now, so I get to hear from him. Gabrielle was not academically gifted, but she's a gifted artist. She wasn't thinking she could go to college. She needed a lot of support to get through the high school curriculum in some classes. She received numerous acceptances and scholarships to excellent art schools. Andrew was doing scientific research as a homeschooled high school student, and he's continuing that in college. He's thrilled to pieces. He's the young man with the University of Pittsburgh letter there. The Sobti twins, I'm going to talk about on the next slide. Dovey is a dancer who built a bar, B-A-R-R-E, in her living room in order to keep dancing during the pandemic. They moved out all their living room furniture and made it into a little dance studio for her. She's now excelling at an honors college and dancing on the dance team. She was just tickle pink. David is one of my many Eagle Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout mom. I have 3 Eagle Scout sons, and I get to work with a number of them from different troops, and it's lovely. He grew in confidence during our time together, clarified his college goals, and is now sharing his faith on campus. And then the mom, that's Anne. And after working together to launch her daughter, she and her husband are pursuing their dreams, and they've moved abroad. They're having a great time. And then a little bit more. Chris was an ambassador on his undergraduate campus where he had a full ride. He was going to leverage that into a full ride for tuition for law school. The Sobti twins, Fatima and Sarah, were offered 5 full rides between the two of them. They were from an immigrant family that had left everything. And they had 4 kids. These are the oldest 2. They both wanted to go to med school. So full rides for undergrad was essential to make this work. And we were able to do that in spades, and they had choices. Chris, the young man I mentioned before, has a full ride for leadership. Luke was a young man I worked with years and years ago as a swimmer. He got an athletic full ride. Sadly, his parents had just filed for divorce as he began his junior year. They delegated his college prep and application process to me while they went through that nasty process. And I was able to keep him on track, help him get through all of the emotional things he had to go through, so he could pursue his dreams despite his parents' crisis. And then Cece was fun, delightful young lady. She explored 3 majors, and she was like full on. I'm going to be a pharmacist. I'm going to do this. And we did that during the high school years. She figured out what she really wanted to do, excelled in college, just finished graduate school, and is now successful in the career that she chose with me all these years later. Facebook's a cool thing. I get to keep in touch with some of these people over the years. So, and I'd mentioned earlier that I would share with you an opportunity to get to connect with me. So I would like to invite you to schedule a consultation with me. We'll meet for an hour, both the parents and the teenager and myself, and we'll discuss your situation, answer your questions. And afterwards, I will prepare recommendations for you for moving forward. And then we'll have a phone call once you've received my recommendations, because I always give all that in writing so that you have time to review it and discuss it and write on it and all that stuff. And then we'll talk about how to best move forward. And I want to note that in addition to my complete program, I do offer some of my services a la carte, because I found over the years that that works better for some families. So I'm going to take you to my website in a minute, and I will show you kind of how to plug in to schedule a consultation. So remember, God's in charge. None of us faces all of this. As a bonus, I want to thank you for attending. From my website, you can get the free ebook, 15 Ways to Save $10,000 on College. And with the recording, I'll email a coupon for 20% off of ePrep's courses. ePrep is an online SAT, ACT, PSAT prep course company. And people are like, why do we need to do that? A lot of people are test optional now. It's like, yep. And there's still a lot of money out there related to scholarships, and there's still a lot of opportunities for honors colleges and things. If your kid's a good tester, then you want to maximize that, so that that's part of what they're presenting, to present the best they can. For our kids who are not great testers, test optional is a nice thing to have going on. So I'll be getting those along to you. I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you taking the time. Okay. If you give me a moment here, I am going to stop sharing just for a second and switch screens so I can show you my website. And I'll show you how to how to find me. So my website, as I said, is CelticCollegeConsultants.com. You scroll down here. If you click on my picture, there's a little intro video. So maybe you have a spouse that wasn't here, like to get to know me a little bit. So that's there. The pillars again are there, a little bit more information about them. And then in this section here, private consulting, schedule our consultation. Okay, there's a little bit more information from some more parents. If you click on the cover of the book, it'll take you to Amazon. You can order the book. And then there's some other things down here for you as well. But hopefully this will work well. So this takes you to my scheduler, and there's a lot on here, which is why I wanted to show it to you. So if you go here for college prep consultations, do the Catholic professional, please give yourself a discount for taking the time to be in this meeting tonight. And then you'll see that there are times available, and just click on it and it'll help you schedule and take your payment. But I wanted to show you that to make sure that you noticed the Catholic professional. And if you're not Catholic, it's okay. You still took the time to be part of tonight's presentation. So please take that discount. And as I said, that comes right from my website. So CelticCollegeConsultants.com, and you can schedule that consultation. So again, I want to thank you for your time. I truly appreciate you being here, and hope that you've got good notes. I will be sending out the recording in the next day or two, along with those bonuses. So look for that in your inbox, and I look forward to meeting you and getting to talk about your situation in particular. And take a little time. I know that was a lot of information that I went through very quickly. It's always kind of hard to do this because it's such a complex process, and there's so many things to it. And it has changed quite a bit since when we went to school. So it's just a lot to consider. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.